What's up, Trainiacs? As 2018 comes to a close in a series of videos here, we're looking back on all of the good things that have happened over the course of the year. It's been a fantastic year. Thank you all so very much for tuning in and allowing this to happen. One of the things that has been one of the most amazing things that I wasn't expecting to really enjoy has been producing the Triathlon Taren podcast and learning from some of the best people in the world what and how to do their craft. So today we're going to talk about the biggest lessons that I took from the experts that we interviewed on the Triathlon Taren podcast. What's up, Trainiacs? So over the course of 2018, the Triathlon Taren podcast became the most highly rated and ranked triathlon podcast in the world on Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to NTK for really being the talent that asks the good questions and edits the podcast and posts the podcast. So I just really try not to swear too much and make sure things are recording, which I screwed up once. But you all have listened, so thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who reviewed. Apparently that plays a big part in it being one of the top ranked podcasts for triathletes in Apple Podcasts. That goes into like their search algorithms. So thank you to everyone who's done that. And if you haven't yet done it and you want to go do it, that's a really nice way to help. Also, thank you to all the experts who take their time and come talk with us on the podcast. And these 6 tidbits that I've taken from those experts, some of them are pros, some of them are coaches, some of them are trainers, some of them are athletes. These are the things that I've taken and applied to my training that I have noticed not just a marginal benefit from, but an enormous benefit from that I think everyone can benefit from, and we are going to be including in a lot of the planning for Team Trainiac. So you can all benefit from it. The first lesson is a mental lesson from Sly Walters, who is a strength coach who takes a really big role in getting his athletes mentally prepared for their events. He is a soccer, basketball, football, and swimming specific coach. And you might think, like, what is common to all of that? Well, the common thing is that all of these athletes have to mentally perform on the day. And the thing that he told me in this podcast that was so motivating that I think can apply to anyone is he said, all right, get yourself a whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, every single day that you reach a goal, X it out or check mark. And you might think, well, this is fairly basic stuff. Like, okay, I'm going to reach a goal every single day. But what he said that was unique is that that goal is different for everyone, in the sense that as you start getting better, that goal has to increase. So maybe for somebody just completely starting out in triathlon, maybe that goal, if they're trying to get from 300 pounds down to 200, is just doing something every single day. Maybe for somebody who has raced a few triathlons but wants to take it more seriously, it is do something fairly challenging every single day. Maybe for somebody like me who's trying to go from a fairly good age grouper to a really good age grouper, I hope to be someday, it is set a really big focus for every single workout that is very much going to challenge you that you don't think that you can accomplish. And that is your goal every single day. But he said what you need to have is that visual cue so that every single day you are extremely motivated to visually check off that you are reaching your goal. But the key is to make sure that that goal is something that makes you a little bit better every single day and is always a bit of a stretch so that you don't get into a lull and you're motivated every single day to get a little bit better. Sly Walters, smart guy. That podcast was one of the more motivating ones that I've ever been a part of. That was awesome. Next one, and this was just like, holy smokes, I gotta take a bunch of notes while we're talking here. Dan Plews, who was the amateur winner in Kona. He set the Kona course record for amateurs all time. interesting thing about Dan Plews is that he is also a sports scientist. So a lot of the things that he has researched have been things that have applied to him as an athlete. So things like heart rate variability, things like doing the keto diet and increasing your ability to fat oxidize. And those two things are two really big lessons. Number one, he said that being able to oxidize fat well, access your fat stores, is one of the biggest correlative factors that determines how well you will do in ultra distance races, being a half Ironman or longer. So that starts me thinking down a path of getting less reliant on sugar, and I've been trying it for the past little while. I've been lighter, I've been recovering just as well. My top end has actually been really good. The thing is, you have to do it intelligently, and the intelligence is kind of what we talked about with Dan about how to practically do this stuff day to day, because what happens out there with a lot of this keto diet stuff is that it is so to that spectrum of everyone has to keto diet all the time. It's not practical for day-to-day life and for people that are endurance athletes. But somewhere in there, there's a lot of really good practical stuff that you can take, and Dan helped explain that. The second thing is HRV training, heart rate variability training. I've talked about it in other videos, but heart rate variability training in many studies has shown upwards of a 4 to 5-fold improvement in your improvement over the course of a training period. And this, in some cases, are with already elite cyclists, and showing that elite cyclists, by using heart rate variability training properly in a very constructive way that isn't unpractical, and that's what Dan helped with, is how do we practically take heart rate variability training and apply it in a way that we can get potentially results that we're seeing in a lab, but not have it be so impractical that you can't take it out of a lab and apply it in real life. And Dan explained that. So I've been applying heart rate variability training, and I really think that this is the future of endurance periodization. We are working on how to incorporate this in a future version of Team Trainiac because there's a lot to it. Third most interesting thing, we did this really early in 2018. This was an interview we did with CrossFit endurance expert Brian Mackenzie. Now, Brian Mackenzie is known much more for the CrossFit lifestyle, like you can only train 6 hours a week and you can do fantastically in a full Ironman. Now, I think that there are some aspects of it that make a lot of sense, but I think it might be a little bit towards the spectrum of that's a little bit unpractical, Brian. But the one thing that we took from him that actually Sly Walters agreed on is how important nasal breathing is. Nasal breathing while you're working out is very difficult. The first time you do it, it's gonna feel like you're gonna die. Guarantee it. But it encourages a really deep breath from your diaphragm, getting a full breath instead of a shallow breath. This is basically a cheater breath out of your mouth because it's like crack. It's so easy to access that your body doesn't strengthen itself because it doesn't have to work to get that breath. Here, it's got to work to get that breath. So your cardiovascular system gets stronger breathing through here. It's also a way to get stronger while doing lower intensities. So this is something we've included in Team Trainiac, that you can't just go out and pound yourself into oblivion day after day after day, but sometimes you need to generate a training effect and improve your ability to function aerobically to get you to that race confidently and be able to perform well. And a good way to do that is with nasal breathing, because it provides, it's called a hormetic response. It is giving your body a challenge that it forces your body to get a little bit stronger, but it's not so challenging that you get home and you're totally shot and you can't hang out with your friends or your wife or your kids, or you need to take a nap for the next 3 hours. Nasal breathing is also one of the future things that training people are really going to look at. I'm looking at it. All the Team Trainiacs are going to be doing a fair bit of it. Fourth bit of training advice, and this is from one of the best triathlon coaches in the world, the head coach and founder of Purple Patch, Matt Dixon. Met Matt worked a lot with Matt, worked a lot with his wife Kelly, worked a lot with the entire Purple Patch crew. The Purple Patch methodology is an incredible way to look at training. And what Matt does that I would say he has pioneered, and he's going to kill me if he sees this because he doesn't like being called this, but being known as the recovery coach is right. Matt prioritizes recovery, and knowing that recovery is key to getting faster is just as important as knowing how to do those hard workouts. If you can't recover, and this is giving yourself proper nutrition immediately after a workout, getting proper sleep, having just a light, a little bit of a less stressful time every single day is allowing you to absorb all of that hard training. And what was happening before I got in touch with Matt was I was just pounding myself over and over and over and getting sicker and sicker and more injured and not getting any faster while I was at it. Tack on a little bit of recovery after talking with Matt more, and all of a sudden I start putting out personal best in an Olympic, personal best at Coeur d'Alene, personal best at Half Ironman Worlds, and this was all while I hadn't done a big training block in the winter, but I was recovering from injuries and illnesses while getting faster. Huge, huge, huge stuff. I actually recommend the Purple Patch podcast and Matt's book very much. Related to Purple Patch and someone that I met through Purple Patch was a Purple Patch pro, Laurence Delisle, who I interviewed on the podcast. And Laurence is not someone who you'd think like, oh my goodness, this is like the best athlete in the world that I am going to learn so much from. But Laurence was an NCAA All-American swimmer, went to 2 Olympic trials, went into pro triathlon racing. But the thing that really amazed me, when I met her while I was down in San Francisco, she said, I'm going to be at the pool about 15 minutes early, go for a swim before the session starts because I just want some me time. And I talked to her about that in the podcast, and I was like, why do you do that? And she's like, well, it's just my time to work on me. It's my time to know that I'm getting better, that she has that dedication to improving herself, and it's not about like massive, stressful, hard-charging drive, but it's just consistently layering on appropriate, intentional work and enjoying it while you're at it. Like, she loves swimming. The smile that you see on her face in her Instagram photo, you see that she loves doing this. So it doesn't come from a place of fear or anger or competition or stress. She's doing this, as she says, just for some me time. And sometimes people need to realize that many good workouts layered on top of each other makes a great triathlete, but one great workout doesn't. So be a champion by just being consistent and diligent over time. Maybe a little bit of extra dedication, like swimming a few extra 1,000 meters over the course of a week. That was really cool. Mad respect, Laurence. And then finally, the last thing. This was from Talbot Cox when I interviewed him. Talbot had such an interesting story about how he came to be one of the most well-known photographers and videographers in the sport of triathlon. He said that when he was coming into the sport, he was dating a pro triathlete, and he would just go to the events and he would take pictures because he wanted to learn how to take pictures. And he's like, well, while I'm here, why don't I take some pictures and I'll learn how to make them look really pretty on my phone. And what he did was he just took pictures of all the pro athletes, and then while his girlfriend was sitting and recovering from the race, and he was just kind of hanging out in the hotel room, he's like, all right, let's do some work. And he banged out a whole bunch of photos, and he'd just send them off to the pros for free. And he'd say, here you go. And that is how Camera at Talbot Cox was started. Everyone just started using them because he hustled and he did something that he loved, and he did it for free, and he did it without asking for anything. It was just a nice thing that he did. Well, fast forward to when he starts doing it more seriously, all of a sudden he was everyone's pal because he'd been giving them free photos, and he didn't do it with the intention of, well, I'm going to do this and give them free photos and then later I'm going to hit them up for something. It was just literally, I'm going to do something that I love, that I think will help them out, and I'll learn a little bit in the process. And it was just such a cool reminder of how being selfless and at the same time, like doing something quickly, passionately, and building relationships in a way that gives is really good. And I think that selfless nature of Talbot is why he's been so successful. And it was just a reminder to be selfless and help people out. So those were the 7 biggest lessons that I took from people that we interviewed on the podcast. Thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you to everyone for being on the podcast. There is a reason that it is the most highly rated and ranked triathlon podcast in the world. It's certainly not because of me. NTK, thank you very much. Everyone for listening, thank you very much. Everyone for reviewing, thank you even more. And thank you to everyone for being on the podcast and taking time to chat with us. There's so much that we've learned from it. It's like knowledge. It's just here. I just got to sit and press record. So thanks, everyone. It's going to be a great 2019. Lots more guests that are planned. So stay subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Later, Trainiacs.